What happens when Hollywood's most outspoken actor meets daytime television's most controversial host? You're about to witness one of the most explosive confrontations ever caught on live TV. Mark Wahlberg walked onto The View set expecting a typical promotional interview, but what unfolded was a verbal battleground that left producers scrambling and security rushing to intervene. Before we dive into this incredible showdown, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling us what you think really happened behind the scenes. The tension was palpable from the moment Mark Wahlberg stepped onto The View's iconic set. The studio audience erupted in their usual welcoming applause, but seasoned viewers could sense something different in the air. Whoopi Goldberg sat at the moderator's position, her expression already skeptical as she shuffled through her notes. With deliberate slowness, "Welcome back to The View," Whoopi began, her voice carrying an edge that regular viewers recognized as trouble brewing. "We're here with Mark Wahlberg, who's promoting his latest film. Mark, thanks for joining us." "Thanks for having me, Whoopi," Mark replied, settling into his chair with the easy confidence of someone who'd done thousands of interviews. "Always good to be here with you ladies." Joy Behar leaned forward with her trademark smirk. "So Mark, your new movie deals with some pretty heavy themes about redemption and second chances. Given your own past, how personal is this story for you?" The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Mark's jaw tightened slightly, but he maintained his composure. "Look, Joy, I've never hidden from my past. I was a kid who made mistakes, and I've spent my adult life trying to make up for those mistakes through my work and my family." "Mistakes," Whoopi repeated, her voice dripping with skepticism. "Is that what we're calling hate crimes now? Mistakes?" The studio fell silent. Even the camera operators seemed to hold their breath. Sarah Haynes shifted uncomfortably in her seat, while Sunny Hostin's eyebrows shot up in surprise at Whoopi's direct attack. "Whoopi, I was 17 years old," Mark said, his voice steady but his knuckles whitening as he gripped his chair. "I've apologized publicly multiple times. I've worked with community organizations. I've tried to use my platform to do better." "Oh, you've apologized," Whoopi shot back, leaning forward aggressively. "How convenient. You got rich and famous, so now you're sorry. Tell me, Mark, would you be sorry if you were still living in Dorchester working construction?" Alyssa Farah Griffin tried to intervene. "Whoopi, I think what Mark is trying to say is that people can change and grow from their past actions." "Can they though, Alyssa?" Whoopi snapped, not taking her eyes off. "Mark, or do they just get better at public relations? Because I'm looking at a man who built his entire career on playing tough guys and heroes, while his victims had to live with the trauma he caused." Mark's face flushed red. "My victims? One of my victims actually reached out to me years ago. We had a conversation. He forgave me. But apparently, that's not enough for you." "Oh, one victim forgave you," Whoopi said mockingly. "What about the others? What about the Vietnamese man you permanently blinded? Did he forgive you too?" "That's not what happened," Mark said firmly, his Boston accent thickening with emotion. "The man wasn't blinded by me. That was misinformation that got spread around. He had already lost sight in that eye years before in the Vietnam War." Joy Behar jumped back in, sensing blood in the water. "But you did attack him, Mark. You did call him racial slurs. You can't deny that." "I'm not denying it," Mark replied, his voice rising. "I was a messed up kid from a broken home. I was angry at the world. But I've spent the last 30 years trying to be better." Whoopi laughed bitterly. 30 years of being better while making millions playing action heroes. Must be nice to reinvent yourself when you've got Hollywood money. "Sarah," Haynes finally spoke up, trying to restore some balance. "Mark, I think what some people struggle with is understanding how someone moves forward from such serious incidents. What would you say to young people who might be in similar situations now?" Mark turned to Sarah gratefully. "I'd tell them that anger and hate will destroy you from the inside. I'd tell them that the path I was on led nowhere good. I'd tell them that it's never too late to change, but you have to want to change. You have to do the work." Easy words from someone who never faced real consequences. Whoopi interjected. "You got to become Mark Wahlberg, movie star. Your victims got to live with what you did to them." "What do you want from me, Whoopi?" Mark asked, his patience finally wearing thin. "You want me to go back in time and undo it? You want me to quit acting and disappear? I've tried to make amends. I've tried to use my success to help others. I want you to stop pretending you're some kind of inspiration story," Whoopi fired back. I want you to stop acting like you're the victim here. Oh, poor Mark. He was just a troubled kid. Well, guess what? Lots of kids are troubled. Most of them don't go around attacking people and screaming racial slurs. Sonny Hostin, who had been quietly observing, finally weighed in. As someone who's worked in criminal justice, I do think there's value in discussing rehabilitation versus punishment. Mark, you were charged as a juvenile. The system was designed to give you a second chance. Thank you, Sonny, Mark said. That's exactly right. The juvenile justice system exists because we recognize that children make mistakes and can change. Children don't commit hate crimes. Whoopi shot back immediately. Racist adults in small bodies commit hate crimes. And the fact that you keep calling them mistakes shows you still don't get it. The tension in the studio was electric. Audience members were whispering to each other, and the producers could be seen frantically gesturing from behind the cameras. Mark Wahlberg, one of Hollywood's biggest stars, was being systematically torn apart on live television, and Whoopi Goldberg was just getting started. Mark leaned back in his chair, his Hollywood composure finally cracking. You know what, Whoopi? I came here to talk about my movie, to have a normal conversation. But you've clearly got some kind of agenda here. My agenda? Whoopi's voice rose an octave. My agenda is calling out people who think they can just buy their way out of being racist. You think because you donate to charity and say the right things in interviews that makes you some kind of reformed saint. I never said I was a saint, Mark replied, his voice getting louder. But I'm not going to sit here and let you act like I haven't genuinely tried to make things right. You don't know me. You don't know what I've done privately to try to make amends. Joy Behar sensed an opportunity to pile on. But Mark, that's just it. It was private. Meanwhile, you're out here making movies where you play cops and soldiers. And heroes. Don't you see the irony in that? The irony? Mark turned to Joy, his eyes flashing. The irony is that I'm sitting here being lectured about racism by people who've never walked in my shoes. You grew up middle class, Joy. You went to college. You don't know what it's like to grow up in a neighborhood where violence is normal and hate is taught. Oh, so now it's everyone else's fault. Whoopi jumped back in. Poor Mark grew up rough. So that excuses everything. You know what? I grew up poor too. A lot of people grow up poor. We don't all become violent racists. Alyssa Farah Griffin tried once again to moderate. I think what's important here is that we're having this conversation. These are difficult topics that America needs to discuss. No, Alyssa, Whoopi cut her off sharply. What's important is that we stop giving platforms to people who've committed hate crimes and then want to lecture us about redemption. Mark, you want to talk about your movie? Fine. Tell us why anyone should care about your opinion on morality and justice when you've got blood on your hands. Mark stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. The audience gasped. Blood on my hands. Are you serious right now? I was a kid. A stupid, angry kid who did stupid, angry things. But I never killed anyone. I never permanently hurt anyone. Sit down, Mark, Whoopi commanded. But her tone only made him angrier. No, I won't sit down, Mark shot back. I'm done being lectured by someone who thinks she's morally superior to everyone else. You want to talk about hate? Look in the mirror, Whoopi. The way you're treating me right now, the way you're talking to me, that's hate too. Sarah Haynes looked genuinely concerned. Mark, please, let's just take a breath here. Everyone's getting heated. I'm heated because I'm being ambushed, Mark said, pointing at Sarah but keeping his eyes on Whoopi. I came here in good faith to talk about my work, and instead I'm getting a public lynching from someone who's supposed to be a professional. The word lynching hit the studio like a bomb. Whoopi's face went dark. Did you just use that word? Did you seriously just compare this interview to a lynching? I'm comparing being publicly humiliated and attacked to being publicly humiliated and attacked, Mark replied, but his voice had lost some of its confidence. He realized he'd made a mistake. Unbelievable, Whoopi said, shaking her head. A white man who committed hate crimes is now claiming he's being lynched because someone's asking him tough questions. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is exactly the kind of mentality that creates racists in the first place. Sonny Hostin leaned forward. Mark, I think you need to understand why that word choice is problematic, especially in this context. Fine, poor word choice, Mark said quickly. But the point stands. You're not asking me tough questions, Whoopi. You're attacking me. There's a difference. I'm holding you accountable, Whoopi fired back. something that apparently no one else in Hollywood has been willing to do. You've been coddled and protected and allowed to play the redemption card for decades. Well, not here. Not today. Joy. Behar decided to escalate further. Mark, you've made over $300 million since those incidents. Your victims got nothing. How is that justice? What do you want me to do, Joy? Mark asked, his frustration boiling over. Give away all my money? Would that make you happy? Would that satisfy your sense of justice? It would be a start, Joy replied smugly. Are you kidding me right now? Mark's voice cracked with disbelief. You're seriously suggesting I should give away my entire fortune because of things I did as a teenager? I'm suggesting that maybe, just maybe, you should stop profiting off playing heroes when you've been a villain. Joy shot back. Alyssa tried one more time to bring sanity to the conversation. I think we're losing sight of the bigger picture here. The question isn't whether Mark should give away his money. The question is how we as a society deal with people who've made serious mistakes and want to change. He doesn't want to change, Whoopi interrupted. He wants to be forgiven without doing the work. He wants to be absolved without facing consequences. That's not how it works. Mark's face was red with anger and frustration. What work? What consequences? I've been in therapy for 20 years. I've worked with youth programs. I've tried to be a better father than my father was to me. What more do you want? I want you to stop making movies where you're the good guy, Whoopi said simply. I want you to stop pretending you're some kind of role model. I want you to acknowledge that some things can't be fixed with money and good intentions. So you want me to just disappear? Mark said quietly. You want me to stop working, stop providing for my family, stop trying to contribute something positive to the world. I want you to contribute something honest to the world, Whoopi replied. Stop playing cops and soldiers and heroes. Stop taking roles that require moral authority. Find another way to make a living that doesn't involve pretending you're someone you're not. The studio was dead silent. Even the crew had stopped moving. Mark Wahlberg stood there, looking around at the faces staring at him, processing what Whoopi had just said. His career, his livelihood, his entire identity was being questioned on national television. You know what? Mark said finally, his voice eerily calm. I think we're done here. He started to remove his microphone, but Whoopi wasn't finished. We're done when I say we're done, she said. You don't get to walk away from this conversation just because you don't like where it's going. That's exactly the kind of privilege I'm talking about. Mark stopped fumbling with his microphone and turned back to face Whoopi, his eyes blazing. Privilege? You want to talk about privilege? You've been sitting in that chair for years, collecting millions of dollars to give your opinions on everything under the sun. You've never had to worry about where your next meal was coming from. You've never had to fight for everything you've got. Don't you dare, Whoopi said, standing up from her chair. Don't you dare try to turn this around on me. I earned everything. I have. I didn't get it by terrorizing innocent people on the street. And I didn't get what I have by sitting around feeling sorry for myself. Mark shot back. I worked for it. I changed my life. I became something better than what I started as. Joy Behar laughed mockingly. Better? You think you're better? Mark, you're still the same person who committed those crimes. You just have better publicists. Now, you don't know me, Joy, Mark said, his voice dangerously low. You sit there in your ivory tower making jokes about everything, but you don't know what it's like to actually struggle with real demons. Real demons? Whoopi stepped closer to Mark's chair. Your real demons were racism and violence. And, instead of facing them, you buried them under fame and fortune. Sarah Haynes looked panicked. Security, maybe we should take a commercial break. No, Whoopi said firmly, not taking her eyes off Mark. We're going to finish this right here, right now. Mark, I want you to look into that camera and tell America why they should forgive you when you clearly haven't forgiven yourself. I don't need America's forgiveness, Mark said, his voice shaking with rage. I need to live with what I did every single day, and I do. But I also need to live my life and provide for my family and try to do some good in this world. By playing make-believe hero in movies. Sunny Hostin asked, how is that doing good? Because maybe some kid who's angry like I was will see that there's another way, Mark replied. Maybe they'll see that you can change, that you can be better. Or maybe they'll see that you can commit hate crimes and still become rich and famous, Whoopi countered. Maybe they'll learn that there are no real consequences for their actions as long as they're good-looking and can memorize lines. Mark's fists clenched at his sides. You know what your problem is, Whoopi? You're bitter. You're angry at the world, and you take it out on people who are trying to do better. You hide behind this moral superiority act, but deep down you're just as angry and hateful as anyone else. The audience gasped. Several people in the front row stood up. Whoopi's face went completely still. "Excuse me," she said quietly. "You heard me." Mark continued, "Past the point of caring about consequences. You sit there judging everyone else. But what have you done to make the world better? Besides complain and attack people on television?" Alyssa Farah Griffin stood up. "Mark, I think you need to stop right there." "No, I'm not stopping," Mark said, turning to face the entire panel. "I'm sick of being lectured by people who've never had to fight for anything. Joy, you make jokes about other people's pain. Sunny, you act like you're some kind of legal expert, but you're just another talking head. And Whoopi, you're the worst of all because you pretend to care about justice, but all you really care about is tearing people down." "Security," Whoopi called out loudly. "Get him out of here." "I'm leaving," Mark said, finally succeeding in removing his microphone and throwing it down on his chair. "But not because you're kicking me out. Because I'm done with this circus." Two security guards appeared at the edge of the set, but they hesitated, unsure of how to handle the situation with cameras rolling live. "You can't handle the truth," Mark continued, pointing at Whoopi. "The truth is that people change. The truth is that redemption is possible. But you don't want to believe that, because then you'd have to admit that maybe you're not as perfect as you pretend to be." "Get out," Whoopi screamed, her professional composure completely gone. "Get out of my studio right now." "It's not your studio," Mark replied calmly, suddenly in control again. "It's ABC's studio. You're just another employee here, just like everyone else." The security guards finally moved in, but Mark held up his hands. "I'm going. Don't worry. I wouldn't want to stay in a place where hatred and bitterness are disguised as moral authority." As he walked toward the exit, he turned back to face the cameras. "America, you just witnessed something pretty ugly. And it wasn't from me. It was from people who think they have the right to destroy someone because of mistakes they made as a child. Think about that." "Keep walking," Whoopi yelled after him. "And don't come back." "Don't worry," Mark called over his shoulder. "I wouldn't come back if you paid me." The studio fell into stunned silence as Mark Wahlberg disappeared behind the cameras. Whoopi stood there breathing heavily, her hands shaking slightly. The other panelists sat frozen, unsure of what to do or say. Finally, Sarah Haynes spoke into the uncomfortable silence. "We'll be right back after this commercial break." As the show cut to commercial, Whoopi slumped back into her chair, but her face showed no remorse. If anything, she looked satisfied. She had gotten exactly what she wanted, a complete destruction of Mark Wahlberg's reputation on live television. Joy Behar leaned over to her. "Well, that was something." "That was justice," Whoopi replied coldly. "That was finally holding someone accountable for their actions." But as the cameras stopped rolling and the studio audience began to murmur among themselves, it was clear that something had fundamentally changed. The View had always been known for heated discussions and controversial moments, but this felt different. This felt personal. This felt like the kind of moment that would be talked about for years to come. The question now was whether America would see it as justice served or as a powerful man being torn down by someone with their own agenda. What started as a simple promotional interview had become a defining moment for both Mark Wahlberg and Whoopi Goldberg, and the ramifications would extend far beyond the walls of that studio. So what do you think really happened here? Was Whoopi right to hold Mark accountable so aggressively, or did she go too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more incredible stories from the world of entertainment. Let us know, do you believe people can truly change, or are some mistakes too big to ever be forgiven?